It
A
started as
pleasure
a
to finally
quiet
meet
Thursday
you.
evening
The
in
honor
my
is mine.
small apartment
To
on
new
the edge of the
alliances.
city. Life had become a
This vintage
series
is
of predictable
exquisite.
loops.
Indeed, it pairs
Work,
beautifully with the
home,
meal, and the
sleep,
company makes it perfect.
repeat, and I found comfort in the monotony. That was until the new neighbors moved in next door. They were peculiar, certainly, but not in a way that made you question your sanity immediately. No, their peculiarity was subtle, almost ethereal, like a soft glow you only notice when the lights go out. I first met them while collecting my mail. The doorway was wide and slightly arched, painted in a muted metallic sheen that reflected the streetlights in a way I found oddly calming. Two figures stood inside, silhouetted by soft amber light. One turned toward me, a tall presence with a graceful stoop that reminded me of old-world nobility. The other lingered slightly behind, smaller, almost shy. Both had hair the color of moonlight, and skin that caught the light in a way human skin simply couldn't. "Good evening," the taller one said, voice smooth and melodic. "I am Kale, and this is Leora. We are your new neighbors." There was something disarmingly gentle about their tone, though I couldn't quite place it. Maybe it was too serene for the city streets, too composed for the kind of hurried lives we led here. I introduced myself, shook Kale's hand. It was warm but firm, almost electric in its subtle pressure, and noted that Leora barely spoke, offering only a small, serene smile. Weeks passed, and our interactions were minimal but pleasant. I'd catch them in the stairwell, exchanging polite nods, or through the thin walls of our apartments, hearing soft, melodic hums that seemed almost like music, though not quite human. Then one evening, a simple note slipped under my door changed everything. "Dinner tomorrow. We would be honored if you joined us. 7 p.m. Leora and Kale." I paused for a long moment, holding the delicate card. Invitations weren't rare, but an invitation from neighbors like these, so enigmatic, felt like a portal into something unknown. Still, curiosity won. I replied with a quick text. "I'll be there. Thank you." The dinner invitation. When I arrived the next evening, the apartment was illuminated in the same soft amber glow. The air felt thick with fragrance, something floral, yet impossible to identify, mingling with a warmth that seemed to embrace me. They greeted me at the door. Kale's smile was calm, Leora's slight, almost shy, but radiant. The interior of their home was breathtaking. Every surface reflected light differently, shifting colors as if the walls themselves were alive. Furniture seemed organic yet structured, like coral formations or crystalline growths. I noticed the dining table, a low, circular surface carved from some dark, glossy material that shimmered under the soft lights. Plates and utensils, if you could call them that, were delicate, translucent, and impossibly intricate. "Please sit," Kale said, gesturing to a seat. "We hope you enjoy our hospitality." I did as instructed, trying to appear casual even as my senses screamed that this dinner would be anything but ordinary. The meal began simply enough, tiny morsels of food that changed color as I touched them. The flavors were indescribable. They didn't just taste, they resonated with my memory, stirring emotions I hadn't felt in years. Each bite left me feeling lighter, somehow more aware of the subtle vibrations of the room. Then came the conversation. Kale asked about my work, my hobbies, my life, and listened with an intensity that made me feel as if each word I spoke was a treasure. Leora contributed occasionally, her voice soft but strikingly lyrical, filling the gaps in ways that made my heart ache with curiosity. There was no small talk here, only depth, only attention. By the time the meal ended, I felt like I had known them for years, though logically I knew I hadn't. They offered dessert, a translucent sphere that dissolved upon my tongue, leaving memories of laughter and warmth I didn't recognize as my own. It was enchanting, intoxicating, and I realized I couldn't remember ever feeling so welcome. The unexpected revelation. After dinner, Kale led me to the balcony. The city stretched below us, yet here it felt like a separate world entirely. "There is something we need to show you," he said, eyes glinting with a mixture of solemnity and anticipation. Leora stepped forward, touching the edge of the railing, and the air shimmered. The city lights below seemed to distort, bending as if looking through water. My pulse quickened. Kale explained, "We are not from this world. We came long ago, seeking refuge and a quiet existence. But we sense something in you, an openness, a curiosity. We wish to share our truth." I blinked. The words sounded surreal, but the sincerity in their eyes was undeniable. They weren't lying, I realized instinctively. Kale raised his hands, palms outward, and the balcony transformed. The metal railing melted away into a holographic display of a distant star system, twin suns orbiting each other, casting golden light over violet oceans and sprawling cities of crystal and silver. "This," Kale said, voice soft, "is where we come from. Leora is the last of her line, and I am her companion. We have lived among humans, quiet and hidden until now." The revelation hit me like a shockwave. Alien. Real, living, breathing aliens had invited me into their home, shared their food, their memories, and now this. The balcony's view shifted again, revealing more of their world. A city alive with movement, beings who shimmered with light instead of skin, architecture that defied physics, and a sky that pulsed with colors I couldn't name. "And you," Kale continued, "have the capacity to see us for who we truly are. That is rare among humans." A stranger bond. What followed was unlike anything I had ever experienced. Kale and Leora began sharing details of their culture, their lives, the emotions of their species, which seemed far more connected and fluid than human experience. Leora demonstrated a simple form of telepathy, projecting a memory of her home world. I saw a festival of light and music, creatures dancing in luminous patterns, cities floating above oceans like giant crystalline islands. It was dizzying, overwhelming, beautiful beyond description. I realized then that the dinner had been a kind of initiation, a way to test my perception, my openness. Their invitation was never about food alone. It was about trust, understanding, and connection. Over the next hour, I began to feel a bond forming. Leora touched my hand lightly, and the sensation was electric, yet comforting, as if it had unlocked a hidden awareness inside me. Kale's presence was grounding, stabilizing, like standing near a mountain peak after a storm. I understood, in that surreal moment, that this was no ordinary friendship forming. It was an interspecies connection, profound and rare. The hidden mission. As the night deepened, Kale spoke again, his tone now urgent. "There is a danger approaching our world, one that will not remain confined to our system. It will spill into yours if unchecked." He revealed a small device, no larger than a wristwatch, containing a map of intersecting wormholes and energy fluxes. "We need someone on Earth who can understand, who can prepare, who can help bridge our species. We believe that person is you." I wanted to protest, to insist that I was just a human living a simple life. But looking at them, at Leora, at Kale, I knew this was not a request. It was an opportunity, a responsibility I could not refuse. "We can teach you," Leora said, eyes gleaming with something like hope. "We will guide you, show you the skills you need. You are not alone." In that instant, I realized that the dinner, the hospitality, the beauty, it had all been a careful orchestration. They had reached out, tested me, drawn me in. And now I had a choice: continue my mundane life or step into something infinite. Stepping beyond. I agreed. The next days became a whirlwind of instruction and preparation. Kale and Leora taught me to sense energy patterns, to perceive fluctuations in time and space, to read subtle changes in matter. They shared alien technology that could interface with my human biology, enhancing reflexes, perception, and cognition without altering my mind. It was exhausting, exhilarating, terrifying. But with each lesson, the bond with my neighbors deepened. I saw Leora laugh, not the quiet smile from the stairwell, but full, radiant laughter that lit her eyes. Kale's stoic demeanor softened in moments of shared triumph and struggle. I felt alive, more alive than I had ever felt before. The first test. A week later, they led me to a small room behind their kitchen. It was circular, filled with softly glowing symbols that shifted as we moved. "This will be your first trial," Kale explained. "A simulation of the threat. It will test your perception, judgment, and your ability to act under pressure." I stepped inside, heart hammering. The simulation activated, and suddenly I was in a chaotic environment. Alien structures crumbling, energy storms sweeping across landscapes, creatures moving faster than I could comprehend. I remembered everything Kale and Leora had taught me. I focused, slowed my perception, guided the flow of energy, stabilized collapsing structures. When it ended, I stumbled out, exhausted but triumphant. Kale and Leora smiled. "You are ready," Kale said simply. "Not entirely, but enough to face what comes." The departure. The night of my first real mission arrived. I stood on their balcony again, the city below shimmering faintly in the early morning light. Kale handed me a small device, a beacon and translator. Leora pressed her hand to mine, sending a wave of warmth and encouragement that left me trembling. "You will not fail," she whispered. "And remember, we are always with you." I stepped forward, and the air shimmered. A portal opened, folding space into itself. One step, and the city, the apartment, the amber glow, all of it was left behind. I was no longer a mere human. I was a bridge, a participant in a galaxy far larger than I had ever imagined. And the neighbors who had invited me to dinner? They were no longer just neighbors. They were my allies, my guides, my friends, perhaps even something more. As I disappeared into the unknown, I realized that my quiet, predictable life had ended. And in its place was an adventure beyond comprehension, one that had. I hovered at the threshold of the portal, feeling the pull of infinite possibilities. The galaxy stretched out before me, dazzling and chaotic, full of worlds I had only glimpsed in dreams. And yet a small, insistent thought anchored me. Kale and Leora. They had trusted me, shared their lives, their memories, their fears. They had invited me to dinner, but what I had received was far more than a meal. I had received a choice, a purpose, and a connection that transcended species and stars. Kale's hand brushed mine, firm and grounding. "You will make mistakes," he said, "but that is part of learning. You are ready for what comes, but remember, we are with you, always." Leora's gaze met mine, softer than the glow of twin suns, her eyes shimmering with emotion I had never seen in a human. "You have opened yourself to us. That is rare and precious. You are one of us now in a way that matters." I nodded, swallowing hard, feeling a warmth that was not just from the portal or the alien technology, but from the bond that had formed in the days and weeks that had passed. They were no longer neighbors. They were mentors, friends, guides, and something far more intimate, a connection that went beyond words. Into the stars. I stepped through the portal. The air shimmered and pulsed around me as the city vanished behind me, replaced by a kaleidoscope of stars, nebulae, and distant planets. I felt weightless, yet profoundly aware, as though every cell in my body was aligned with the rhythm of the cosmos. The first mission awaited. A distant system faced destabilization, a rogue energy storm threatening to collapse entire cities, not just in Leora and Kale's world, but in connected systems as well. They had prepared me for this moment, and now it was time to act. As I approached the target planet, I sensed the energy surges building, chaotic and unpredictable. I remembered Kale's lessons on focusing my perception, and Leora's gentle guidance on connecting with alien energy patterns. Taking a deep breath, I aligned my senses, extending my awareness into the environment, feeling the flow of energy as if it were a living pulse beneath my skin. Hours, or perhaps minutes, passed. Time seemed irrelevant. I stabilized the storm, redirecting energy flows and preventing the collapse of a civilization I had never imagined, yet now felt connected to in a way that was profound and personal. When the surge dissipated, I floated above the planet, exhausted but exhilarated. Reunion and recognition. The portal back home opened smoothly. I returned to the balcony of their apartment, the amber glow welcoming me like an embrace. Kale and Leora were waiting, eyes gleaming with pride and relief. "You did it," Kale said simply. "Not perfectly, but perfectly enough." Leora's smile radiated warmth. "You chose to step forward when it mattered. That is what defines us, what defines trust and courage." I felt an unexpected surge of emotion, one I could not name, but knew was gratitude, connection, and a deep, aching joy. Their home, once merely intriguing, then wondrous, now felt like a nexus of possibility. I realized that their dinner invitation had been a subtle test, yes, but also a gesture of profound faith in me, a choice to trust that I could rise to the challenge. A new life. Weeks turned into months. I became part of their lives fully, traveling between galaxies, bridging worlds, stabilizing energy fluxes, and learning to communicate with civilizations I had never imagined. Each mission deepened the bond one had with Kale and Leora, a bond built on trust, friendship, and shared responsibility. Yet, even in the midst of cosmic turmoil, there were quiet moments, the soft hum of their home, the way Leora's hand brushed mine, the calm presence of Kale beside me. I realized that I had gained more than adventure. I had gained family, connection, and purpose. I had been invited for dinner, but I had received the universe. And one evening, as we watched twin suns rise over Leora's homeworld from the safety of their balcony, she turned to me, eyes glimmering. "We offered you dinner," she said softly, "but the gift was always yours to claim. The galaxy, the stars, and us." I smiled, finally understanding the depth of what they had given me. The gift was not the food, not the invitation, not even the guidance. It was the choice to step into a life larger than myself, a life intertwined with theirs, a life that stretched across galaxies and yet remained intimate, personal, and profoundly human in its emotional truth. I reached for their hands, holding both simultaneously. "Then I accept it," I said, voice steady but filled with wonder. "All of it. Every star, every challenge, every moment with you." They smiled, radiant and serene. And in that moment, I realized the full truth. Life's ordinary moments, like dinner, can sometimes conceal the most extraordinary gifts. The galaxy awaited, yes, but so did the quiet warmth of shared connection. And for the first time in my life, I knew I was truly home.